22nd April 2025 was a dark day for all of us, as Indian citizens and as human beings. A terrorist attack took place in Pahalgam, and we at Pune International Center absolutely condemn such a violent, barbaric, and heinous attack. With this terrorist attack, the topic of national security has become center stage in all our lives once again. To delve into this matter more deeply and to understand the issue better, we have with us the director of Pune International Center, Major General Nitin Gadkari. Sir, could you please share your views on this heinous terrorist attack that has happened so recently?
Yeah, so 22nd of April, it was a sad day. One could not sleep the whole night. It was a sad feeling in the heart, primarily because of the visuals that one saw on the TV that day. And to expect that something like this would happen in a tourist spot in today's time was a difficult thought. Now the question arises, how and why did it happen? So how it happened is very clear, that few foreign terrorists, maybe with one or two of our people, have come down to that meadow from the hills on top. They must be hiding in the jungles there, and found an appropriate moment when most of the tourists were just lazing around, and picked them up one by one and shot them based on the religion, which was the saddest part. The place behind Pahalgam, the hill, actually goes down towards south of Anantnag. That's also a route for Amarnath. It's an alternate route for Amarnath. So it's not as if that place is not inhabited on the other side. So they must be in that. Retd, the route, must have known what to target. And on that specific day, when they found it convenient, because it's a meadow, Baisaran is a meadow where people go, and it's a picnic spot. It's a huge meadow. So people really did not think anything like this would happen.
Place to frolic.
Place to frolic. Now, this is how it happened. They escaped thereafter. The question that comes to anybody's mind is, how could it have happened? Wasn't there any kind of security surveillance? So the answer to this question lies in the fact that after the abrogation of 370, there was a kind of a security that had set into people both in the civil and the military establishment. And they thought that we are able to hold these terrorists, with the help of the locals, of course, at a place much beyond. So them making into this side would be a difficult proposition. But they were obviously wrong, for the very simple reason that we might forget Pakistan, but Pakistan will not forget us. For them, it's not Kashmir which is the jugular vein, it's India. Their existence started and actually ends with India. And that is the principal reason why it happened, because for a very long time after 370, Pakistan was not able to do anything. And they had to do something to get back into some kind of an attention or focus, as you may say. So it was brewing for a while, it's just that we did not think that it would happen. So the mistake has been costly. It was, as you say, a slip up on everybody's part.
Yes, sir. Indian government has taken certain measures. Could you shed some light on that matter in response to this terrorist?
So I'll build it up to say that, see, imagine on the 22nd of April, what was happening? Prime Minister Modi was in Saudi Arabia. Vice President Vance, the US, was in India. So there are three countries involved here: the US, India, and Saudi. So for the terrorists to have struck then, it has to be symbolic. Was it bad timing? No. I mean, it would be hard to believe that it was bad timing. It has to be symbolic. Somewhere a message was going across to everybody that we would hit. Now do what you want. So between the time that Prime Minister Modi landed and took that press meeting in the airport itself, and then ultimately the CCS, I think at least 18 hours would have gone. And fair amount of intelligence input from all the three agencies Saudis, Americans, and the Indians would have come to India. And surely, if a decision was taken that early, that means it met some kind of a consensus somewhere. Now, it's very difficult for somebody like me to state where, how, but it is very obvious. And that is how those measures came into place much before than anyone expected. Till now, we've been expecting always that it will take a while before the government takes a calibrated response. In earlier times, the calibrated response was much longer. Now it was lesser. But to take decision within 24 hours of the incident having taken place, surely there was some consensus. So the first thing to have happened is cut diplomatic ties to a level, reduce presence of the diplomatic staff, cut visas, stop Atari borders, stop any to and fro. But the most important or significant of all these measures was putting the IWT in suspended animation. It's so-called held in abeyance. And that is the most important part of this measure that is taken. How it will lead to, where it will lead to, is a very difficult question to answer. But somewhere, I have a feeling that it was to happen because how long can you keep persisting with the state and saying we'll punish, we'll punish, we'll punish? That punishment never trickles down to the man who's responsible. It trickles down to only a few people who are more or less not involved in decision making. So somewhere where the entire nation was to be hit, and I thought IWT was the target for a long period of time. It was just that the Indian state was resisting in doing it because it has international repercussions. So it's not the abrogation, it is suspension of IWT would actually mean India reserves the right not to obey the rules of IWT till its conditions are met. And this has happened because there is no provision in the IWT to unilaterally abrogate the treaty. There is no provision in that. There is a Treaty of Vienna of 1969, if I'm not wrong, where a party, if it feels aggrieved, and if the situation or circumstances when the treaty was originally done changes drastically, then you can unilaterally withdraw. But it's a separate charter. It is not directly with IWT. Yet India could take that at some point in time. So suspension of IWT is going to lead to far more debate in both national and international fora. Now you possibly could ask a natural question should be, so what happened? What does it really mean? For that, understanding of IWT is a must. So IWT was signed in 1960. After independence, there was a huge amount of deliberation as to how water should be shared. And ultimately, almost about 13 years later, 1960 was signed. And it was basically decided that out of the 6 rivers that flow from India into Pakistan, water of 3 would be given to Pakistan and water of the other 3 come to India. They're divided into western rivers and eastern rivers. The division is nothing but based on the fact that where they end. So the eastern rivers came to India and the western rivers went to Pakistan. This is basically Jhelum, Chenab and Indus. So if 80% of water of this goes there, if you stop waters from these 3 rivers going into Pakistan, theoretically, you could actually dry Pakistan. But that is theory. In reality, it is not so easy to do that because stopping of water means the water has to be stored somewhere else. Yes. So it will only end up inundating your areas, which is not the best of things to happen. So in the short term, nothing really will change. It is only long-term measures that would change. If India decides to stop water, it will, make Pakistan dry or run dry. As far as the eastern rivers are concerned, as it is there with India, but yet I must emphasize here that there is a portion of the eastern rivers that goes unutilized from India into Pakistan, which is almost 5%. And 5% is used for Pakistan. It is 2 million acre feet. On this 5% runs, because this is from Ravi, and Ravi goes straight in the heart of Punjab, Pakistani Punjab, where there is this network of canals, and this actually feeds into that. Should you stop this flow, it's going to substantially make a difference into Pakistan. Even if you don't stop the flow on the western rivers, if you just stop the flow of the western river, that itself would cut much of water supply. So these are some of the ramifications of what IWT could do. But there are many more, but that could be left for a later debate.
So that leads us to the last question, sir. Some of our neighboring countries might have something to say about the Indian measures. What do you think the Chinese response will be to this?
Yeah, so it has to be understood that no India-Pakistan equation is ever complete only by looking at two of us. China is a very important factor in it. And assuming, it's my assumption, that the Pakistani state was involved in this terror attack, they would have calculated that there would be a response from India. So what is their counter? Their counter has to run with China. So if IWT was under threat, like I mentioned, hanging by a sword, they would have thought of a counter much before. So what is the counter? The counter is if India does an IWT on Indus Basin to them, China does the same to us on the Yalab Sangpo, that is the Brahmaputra, which comes from Tibet, and on the Great Bend it comes down into India. China has been wanting to make a dam there for a long period of time. It's basically a hydroelectric dam, as they call it. But that's a ruse. The intent is to divert water from Brahmaputra into the Xinjiang southern province of China, which is a water-hungry belt. So China desperately wants water, and this is a ruse. And this just very well could play into China's hand. And I was watching Park TV on the day or the day after, and they were blatant about it, stating that this is what we expect from China for all the support that we have rendered to you all these years in national, international forums. If you don't do it now, then when will you do it? So they are expecting if India does something on IWT, they do something on the Yalak Sampo. That is the Brahmaputra which is coming from top. So Chinese reaction that could happen is this. The mute question is, would China do it? When would China do it? To what extent China would do it? Because it's not only India that is the lower riparian in this case, it's also Bangladesh who's a lower riparian. And Bangladesh has recently had suddenly good ties with China. So it's not only going to affect India, it's going to affect Bangladesh much more.
Yeah.
So they can't just think about abrogating any agreement. There's an agreement, there's no treaty. A simple agreement where you're supposed to share data, you're supposed to use only for hydroelectric purposes and all that. They could break that agreement if we do that to Pakistan. So currently, this is what I feel could happen. One more thing about China and Pakistan is the collusion which can happen militarily. I didn't speak about it, but in the measures that we have taken, Pakistan has declared that if you abrogate IWT, it is an act of war. What does that mean? That means India, as per them, has declared war, so they will retaliate. I don't think they will retaliate, but they'll surely expect China to help them in doing something should India take a surgical strike or something of that nature, which again is very much a possibility. So that could happen.
Thank you, sir. So I hope we were able to shed some light on this issue. If you have any more questions, please mention them in the comments. Thank you.